Hi, this is Catherine at Blue Sky Endurance, and I'm here with a very special swimming guest, Ken Immer. I wanted to bring Ken in because he has done some amazing things this summer. And so for non-swimmers like myself, I'm always in awe of these people that can go out and do these marathon swims. So Ken just did the Portland Bridge swim, which is an 11-mile swim under 12 different bridges. And I wanted to hear more about how you got started, how you picked this race. I know you've done other marathon swims as well. And just to tell us a little bit more about it. So have you always been a lifelong swimmer?
No, actually, I started swimming about, I guess at this point it's like 6 years ago, so really not that long. And the long distance stuff I've been doing for, I guess 3 years is as long as I've actually been efforting towards the really long stuff. But I started, my first open water swim was Low Country Splash like 5 years ago. At this point it's hard to remember, but it's something like that. And that was when I first knew that it was going to be interesting. So as soon as that race was over, I wanted to do it again. I was like, oh, this was too short. And then I started doing longer swims.
Wow, you just kept going.
Pretty much at this point, the next year I did the 5-mile swim, and then after that, what was my next longest swim? Brian Lanahan, who's one of my training partners here in town, he really was interested in me doing the swimming around Folly. So I did that 2.5 years ago, where I swam all the way around Folly, and that was my biggest swim. That's still my longest swim to date, 16 miles.
Oh my gosh. How long did that take?
That was 6 hours and 40 minutes.
Wow.
So I backed off just a little bit over the last couple of years. I haven't done anything quite that big, and then this swim has been a nice, perfect size for this summer.
Yeah. When did you start training for this?
I guess, I've been training ever since I've started swimming, and I've kind of kept on an idea that I want to continue to swim longer swims. But once I decided this was going to happen, it was late summer of last year, and I said, all right, I am really going to put my head down this winter and just work really, really hard all winter and push myself to a point of I'm just going to develop and feel really strong, and I did, and it worked really, really well. It was consistency is key. Showing up, swimming with Palmetto Masters, and then working out with my friends. We swim out at Folly Island every Sunday, and sometimes I swim with a lot of people that come from Blue Sky out on Sullivan's on Sundays as well. So consistency, working out at least 3 days a week with the team, and then 2 days a week on my own, just doing timed swims for long periods, as well as doing some speed work. I find really works well for me because it makes me go faster, it makes me push myself, and then it allows me to really relax into the longer times and find the really meditative aspects of swimming when I work on my own.
So what percentage are you in the pool versus in the open water for training?
Unfortunately, most of it's in the pool. I would love to say that I do most of my stuff in open water, but unfortunately around here, as we know, everything is tidal. So timing is challenging. There's no place you can go swim kind of every day at 8 a.m. or something, except for in the ocean, but sometimes it's nice to swim in less rough waters, and the weather and everything, it can be very, very difficult to get an exact training schedule. So once a week we go to the beach, and then obviously sometimes we can't, but the pool's always there.
Yeah.
So being able to lean on the pool is great that it's there, but for someone who really loves the open water, I don't like the walls, and I see these 2 walls. I know that this is an endless pool, so there's not really a wall, but it's just sort of like back and forth, so I prefer not to have to turn around at all. So open water would be preferable if it worked out, and if we were near like a lake that was just sitting there, it might be a little easier.
Yeah, so 3 times a week in the pool, 2 times a week on your own, or 3 times a week masters, 2 times a week on your own?
It's almost 5 days a week in the pool, and when I do those long swims, it's just the back and forth at my distance pace, and I might swim for an hour or 2 hours.
How many yards does that come out to usually?
let's see, it really depends on how I'm structuring it, but I guess if I do an hour, then that works out to be, I guess around, gosh, I'm trying to think, 3,500 yards, I guess, or meters. Yeah, I'm not so focused. It's more about the time. Because with distance swimming, you know, the time that you're in the water is what really counts. Because if my marathon's 11 miles and I swim it in 4 hours because there's a great current, then I'm in the water for 4 hours. But if it's not such a great current, like it was at Portland, and I'm in the water for 6 hours and 11 minutes, then that's how long you're in there. So I try not to get too bogged down in the actual amount of yards I'm swimming, but rather the time. Because that's what it's about, is after a certain period, it doesn't really matter how far you've gone, you've still taken the same number of strokes, you're in the water, you're going through that endurance period, so I just don't take that into account as much. I do pay attention to my speed and my intervals to some degree, but once it gets to the longer types of swims, I'm just concerned about how long did I make it? How do I feel at this certain period of time? And at intervals during it. You know, if I'm practicing feeding, how does my body react to, okay, it's been 30 minutes and I ate something and then I keep going. Do I slow down? Do I speed up? Do I feel nauseous? Do I, you know, feel energized?
So it sounds like you're kind of self-coached outside of Palmetto Masters. It's not, you don't have a training plan or a coach you're working with? Or...
Not specifically. I do consult with other open water swimmers and I look at their plans as well, but because it is always so personal anyway, it's always best to try something, see if it works, and if it works, stick with it.
Yeah, that's so cool. Do you, when you're out there in the middle of either when you're training or when you're out in the middle of the marathon swim, do you ever ask yourself, what the heck am I doing out here? Does that ever cross your mind?
Oh,
so,
definitely.
How do you answer that in your head?
Well, the good news is that there was, you know, the first time I actually realized that I loved it so much, like at the Low Country Splash, because I will tell you, the first time I did the Low Country Splash, the first 20 minutes, I thought I was going to die. I was like, you didn't train enough, you don't know what you're doing, this is stupid, what are you doing, this is a horrible idea, and all of a sudden, it was fine, and I was just swimming, and I was like...
What was it? Did it just flip, or did you tell yourself something, or did you like snap out of it, or what did you do?
My body just, like, my heart rate went down, I got my breathing back, and the nerves of everyone around me, like, I was a little more kind of by myself, and it just felt good. You know, I'd been in the water, I knew I liked to swim. So what was the difference? The difference was simply, I was in a race, you know, and I think a lot of times what happens when we're in an event or in a race, we get really hyped up and we feel a lot of pressure. Everyone's going to know what I did, and all these people are beating me. You know, we have so many external pressures that it does kind of overwhelm you and it can freak you out. And you are in the open water, sort of in a place where maybe you don't normally swim, and it can be a little, you know, I don't want to say it's dangerous because you have lots of safety, but, you know, your body can feel that. So once you just get over that and realize, like, wait, I like this. You know, this is something I enjoy doing. And you just kind of get a gentleness about it and go, you know what? I'm here. I'm going to do whatever I'm going to do. And the longer I sit here and kind of freak out, the longer my time's going to be, so I better get to it. And then you just start swimming. So once I got to the end, then I just was like, wait, this was amazing. And then I thought about it, I was like, wait, so I went from complete, you know, like nervousness, excitement, I got in the water and it was a total fail, but then it ended up okay. So there was this process. So you know that that process is going to happen every time. So no matter what, at the very beginning of a race, or even in the middle when you maybe aren't feeling the best, you just remember there is a place I can get to that's amazing. And it's so amazing when you're there that it's worth pushing through. So you just say, I'm just going to keep putting my head down and swim, and eventually you get back to that place. Normally it is at the beginning of a race where I feel not so great. The last swim that I did after Portland, we did a 10K in North Carolina, and it took me almost 2 miles to finally feel like I was settled into the swim. I don't know what it was just that day, it was where we were, but once I got in, you just kind of sink. There's this feeling, and I know marathon runners have the same thing. It's like when their legs disappear. I don't run, so I've never really experienced that, but I've heard about it, where you just kind of feel like you're just going, right?
Yeah.
And in the water, you can get to that same place. So I seek it, and I know it's there. And that knowing is enough to kind of get you through. And eventually, your body does cooperate. You know, your initial, those shock and freakouts and high blood pressure and high heart rate will eventually go down, and then you just...
Because the training is there.
Precisely, and that's the thing, is consistent training. You know what your body's really capable of. You know you can do it, and you just do.
That's awesome. How about the creature factor? So many of us are so afraid of open water because of the creatures. What do you tell yourself?
Well, the easiest answer I have for that is, do you freak out about buses going to hit you when you're walking down the street? Like, it's a real danger, but you just kind of, you trust that it's not going to happen because it doesn't happen very often. I know it's not a perfect metaphor, but at the end of the day, I like to just focus on other things. I get into my own head, and I use swimming as a big meditation. So I may have a song, or I may even just have a sound or a thought or something that I really tend to focus on, and I don't want to say I try not to think about it, I just fill my head with other things, and those worries can go away. Obviously, swimming in waters where you don't touch a lot of things creates experience of it's not going to happen. So something that I do recommend to people is when you're starting open water swimming to talk to other people and say, are there places where, you touch things and there are places where you don't? Like, really find out and get some under your belt where you haven't touched anything in the water, so that you have the experience of it not happening. If the first time you get in, you take a stroke and you touch a jellyfish, you're going to have a hard time getting back in, you know what I mean? So do some research and talk and find places that are safe, that don't have a lot of stuff in the water. I mean, there's always going to be some reeds or some grass or, other plant matter, or even just like a big thing of foam out if you're out in the sea that can, sometimes get in your face or something like that.
Yeah.
But, I just try not to think about it. And the odds are, there's a lot of people doing a lot of open water swimming, and very few people actually have horrible things happen to them, like really bad jellyfish stings, or God forbid, a bite from a large predator. Those are super rare. And you really have to be swimming in some very specific conditions for that to really be a threat. Most places, it's just not that big of a deal. You can touch a fish, and because you can't see it, you can pretend that it's a giant great white shark that's about to eat you. So you do have to, realize that that's not what's going on. Being really educated about what you're going to touch as well, knowing what's possible. Because if you realize that there's really no, there's no giant shark that's going to come get me, then it's really not there. You can make it up, because again, if you don't see it or if you touch something, it can maybe create some things in your head. But again, experience is the best teacher.
That's true. Those are great points. So you also brought some of your bottle system that we would love to take a look at for those of you that are like, how do you eat? How do you take in fuel when you're doing marathon swimming? And Ken has a great little system here that he's going to just share with us. Yeah,
so I've got this little sort of purse of a cooler that I give to my kayaker, because when we do a long marathon swim, it is not a solo sport. You have someone that's swimming along, or not swimming, kayaking right next to you.
Okay.
They are literally within a few arms distance away from you at all times.
That's
so
comforting.
you have
That's so good.
It actually does.
Yeah.
They actually are the ones that point you in the direction. You follow the boat, and then they match your speed. So you're not trying to chase this kayak. It's not like that.
Mm-hmm.
But they're there, so you just have to look at the boat. And then if you need something, they're right there, and they're just waiting for you to, you know, say, I need something. Or if, in my case, I say, I want to feed every 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So he pulls this bag out, and then he says, okay, which color? And I have different types of feeds in the different bottles, from plain water to my Gatorade is a type of aloe drink that has a lot of aloe in it. It has some added sugars, and it's kind of a sweet taste, which, you know, sort of like Gatorade. I also will mix in a carb powder into that same Gatorade to give it extra energy.
Mm-hmm.
And this particular carb powder that I like is 3 different types of complex sugars that break down in your system so that you're getting energy when you first eat it, when you first start digesting, and then as it's continuing through your system, so that you get a constant amount of energy. And then the red ones I always save for something that has some caffeine in it.
Okay.
That is a little bit of a boost. And depending on where I might be swimming, I might even have some coffee as a warm beverage, because sometimes we swim in colder waters and a little bit of a warm beverage might be nice. So it really just depends on the thing. And what they do is, I have a little dog collar around this one, and we'll attach it to a carabiner, and then they just throw it to you. Because you're not allowed to touch the boat. You're not allowed to touch the bottom. When we do these long swims, some of the rules are that you cannot have any aid whatsoever, a flotation or hanging on the boat or touching the bottom to give you forward progress at all. So when they, you know, to kind of try to hand this back in, it's just a matter of like, okay, I'm going to drink it, I take the lid off, and this has a nice grip so that I can easily do it. I drink about half of each one of these bottles per feed.
So you just lay on your back?
Exactly. Get on your back and then just dump it in, and then as soon as I'm done, I just kind of just let it go, and then they haul it back into the boat using the little string that's attached to it. And then he keeps going. So with this particular swim, it was 6 hours, so this was a little bit more than I needed, but you always want to have a little bit more than you need than not enough. You certainly don't want to run out of liquid along the way. You don't want to drink too much because you don't want to have it sloshing around. I mean, it's kind of like running. I'm sure it's the same thing.
Yeah.
If you drink too much, suddenly you're just like, oh, this feels terrible. But you've got to hydrate. We have no idea how much we're sweating.
Yeah.
You're in the water, so the idea that like, oh, maybe I don't need as much water sometimes, you know, but swimmers are just sweating as much as anybody else. Unless the water is really cold, then maybe you would not be sweating as much, but your body is still going through such an amount of metabolism that it needs that moisture. So having the different feeds is part of getting to know your body as well. Like, do I need energy? Do I need the caffeine? Or do I just need some water right now because I need to, you know, just wash out the taste of whether it's salt water or the freshwater lake or river that you're in, just to kind of clear things out and things like that. So feeding is really important. It's real personal as well. I like every 30 minutes. Some people like to do it every 40. Some people might wait at the beginning and then have some other, like a first feed after maybe an hour, hour and 20 minutes, but then they switch to every 30. It really depends on your body. And then we do have some solid food as well. Like I'll have a couple of banana, like 1/2 of a banana for the first few feeds.
Okay.
My treat that I have for myself is I have some peaches that are like in juice, just like the canned peaches. That is something that I like for about halfway through. So when I get to that halfway point, kayak was like, you want some peaches? And I'm just like, oh, you know, just a little bit of a, oh, this is great. I'm at my halfway point, and they're easy to, you don't really have to chew them up. They get into your stomach, and they're not heavy, but they taste really good. And they give, you know, there's some natural sugars in there, but that works for me. And then I also will eat little whatever kind of bites of granola or some sort of like mini bar pieces that might be in something just as something to chew on occasionally if I feel like I need that. But I just think about it when I'm swimming, and then I just tell them what I need, and then they hand it to you. So
That's
it
cool.
makes it simple.
And nutrition is your jam. Like that's what you
Yes,
do
ma'am.
all day, every day when you're not swimming. Tell us a little bit about your nutrition coaching that you do.
So again, it's all about the personal experience, what works for me, and getting to know your body and how it works. The thing that I really thought got me through the Portland swim, because I ended up swimming almost an hour longer than I thought. I was hoping for 5.5 and I ended up at 6:11. So even though I never asked the time, but you know how long you're going, and it was pretty challenging at the end, but I got my nutrition spot on because I was really listening to myself, and I didn't allow anything to really get in the way of me feeling my best, because I've practiced with it and I've worked with that. So when it comes to nutrition coaching with people, instead of starting in a place of this is a program that works and this is what you should do, that is generally way outside of what you already do personally. I mean, it sounds like a great idea. You're like, okay, I want to be a better athlete, so I must do something different. Okay, but how do you actually get to that place? I'm the guy that helps you on the path. I don't necessarily develop, this is the nutrition program that you need, and I'm going to test your blood and do things like that. But rather, I help you along that journey, because guess what? We've all done it. We've all started a program and stopped it eventually, or we ran out of gas, or life got in the way. I'm going to admit that right leading up to my Portland swim, life got in my way. My training kind of took a nosedive for the last month leading up to the swim. I was working, I had to move my mother, I had to be in Florida for a period of time. I had gotten a sinus infection from another swim before that kind of kinked up. So suddenly I'm like dealing with my life, and if I had been on a really strict dietary regimen and trying to like do my life and my training, something's gotta give. And you know what? We usually let the food go first, don't we? Because what is food? It's like a coping mechanism. Oh, at least I can, enjoy this moment, this little donut or this whatever it is that you love to eat can really satisfy a lot of issues that you got. But then as soon as you eat it, you go, oh no, that's not part of my program, and now I've messed that up. And what do we want to do? We want to maybe satisfy that stress with eating just a little bit more, and then it becomes this horrible, self-fulfilling prophecy of I'm not good enough, I can't do this. So what I like to do is help people understand, like, this is what's working today, or this is where you are today, and we can always do a little bit better. We can always feel better. We can have more energy. We can sleep better. We can have quicker recovery from any injuries, or simply just from our traditional workout program. And all of those things are going to build towards your perfect diet. And the idea that we should know where we're going before we start, for an Olympic elite athlete, yes, they really get to that granular point of like, we've got to eat exactly this, because they're trying to just tweak it at a level that most of us, quite frankly, it wouldn't make a difference for us, because we're just not quite that high. All we want to do is finish the race, or best our time from last time, or even just, I do this working out and I do this training program so that I can, play with my kids, my grandchildren, and feel active at an older age. And we don't have to be at that quite elite level. All we need is better sleep, better recovery, a little more energy and things like that. So if we can start to change our diets based on things that we like and things that feel good to us at the same time, we'll stick with it. So my nutrition program includes, and I don't like to use the word cheating, but just foods that are my favorites and recognizing that there's ways of eating them that support all those goals that we have. You know, there is room for cake in a training program for most of us. Again, it's not for every single person, but there can be room for your favorites if you really pay attention to how your body's feeling and how it works. And that comes through a lot of just intuition and paying close attention and recognizing where your taste leads you. Are you a person that really loves carbs? Well, there's a healthy way of eating carbs. Are you somebody that loves fats and or proteins? There's ways of using those as functional foods versus unfunctional or dysfunctional foods.
And if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
The best way to get in touch with me is culinaryhealthsolutions.com is our website. And you can actually even just text the numbers 66866 to the word, texting the word performance to the number 66866.
Okay.
I apologize, I think that was a little confusing. But Culinary Health Solutions is the name of our company. We mostly focus now working with kids on sports teams, but we work with anybody that's looking to do this sort of thing. And we have like a 6-week program that kind of leads you through this process towards a healthier, more sustainable diet that then you can then tweak a little bit more to really get the most out of your training program.
That's super cool. So if you could give me one piece of advice, because I'm just not a great swimmer, but I really admire y'all that do these wonderful long swims. I think it's amazing and incredible. And if you could give me one piece of advice, what would that be?
I'm going to be a little bit creative and say that finding goggles that really fit and feel comfortable is probably the most important part of being able to have a longer swim. Because I will tell you, my last 2 swims, I had 0 goggle issues, and it really made me so happy. And I feel like it added to my performance in a way that sounds silly, but I hear, everyone always kind of complains about, goggle issues, and when you hear people talk about it, it really kind of bogs you down. And if you get salt water in your eye at just that wrong moment, it can just ruin everything. So finding goggles that fit your face, that feel comfortable, and maybe they aren't necessarily the ones that are designed for what you're doing, or someone gave you a recommendation, this is the best goggle, but if you put it on your face and it doesn't fit and it doesn't feel soft and awesome, it's going to be more of a detriment than you can imagine. So, again, feeling happy so you can swim happy is what's going to keep you swimming.
That's good advice. We do have good goggle choices here, so if you ever want to come in and try out different ones, we have demos. You can press them up to your face and make sure they're a good fit. So,
excellent.
Thank you, Ken.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. That's fun.